We've heard a lot about the Trump and the tariffs there. Stewart, do you think Starmer has taken the right approach here with Donald Trump?
You know, I've really not wanted to criticise the Prime Minister because the guy is at least trying. I would not like to be in his shoes where he's going to try and represent the national interest and keep this capricious president in Pennsylvania Avenue on side, but he's eventually going to have to pick a side. You know, we've seen big changes globally on the defence and security landscape. It's understandable he'd want to try and keep the US president on side with that vis-a-vis Russia and Ukraine. We've now opened up an entirely new front of incredible changes across the economy globally. So I think the Prime Minister now needs to think about what he can do domestically to steal the UK's national interest. I think that involves two things: cancelling the increase in national insurance contributions for employers and seriously now looking at the UK at least rejoining the single market and the customs union of the European Union.
Cat, what do you think he should do? I mean, there's some people that think he should be taking a more aggressive approach, like the EU rather is taking.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for a lot of us, if Keir Starmer went out and had a sort of Hugh Grant Love Actually moment, I'm sure we'd all feel a lot better, but I'm not sure that it would actually make things a lot better right now. You know, Keir Starmer is doing what he has been doing throughout his time as Prime Minister, and particularly in relation to his relations with Donald Trump, is to try and take a kind of keep the heat sort of approach, pragmatic, and try and sort of just, you know, really probably maintaining most of those conversations behind the scenes rather than for the cameras and for the media. I mean, he did that with Ukraine, and I think he's doing that now, and I think that it probably is the best approach for the United Kingdom right now. What he's going to be able to do in the long run, though, is going to be very much depend on, I think, how the rest of the global community respond. At the moment, it's sort of the US against the world. And is it actually going to have a moment where it's the world against the United States? And where does the UK fit into that? You've got Canada at the moment with Mark Carney, who's, you know, on campaign mode, and it's really in his interests. It elbows up, as they're saying, as the part of the campaign trail. You've got China, you've got the EU. So how Keir Starmer puts the UK into all of that mix is going to be very carefully done, I suspect.
John, it's said that the UK government breathed a sigh of relief when they heard they were getting a 10% tariff rather than the 20% that the EU got. Do you see this as a Brexit benefit? And we might come back to you about what you think about us joining in the single market, but John?
Well, I mean, it's too early to say, really, but I mean, potentially, maybe. The fact that the UK has got off the lightest could be something that the country can take advantage of. But I think that the tightrope that Keir Starmer's got to walk is, you know, getting longer and longer. And I think that he is doing the right thing just now by keeping a cool head. And in many ways, I can't see what alternative he's got. And that could have an advantage in being an honest broker in the middle of it all.
What do you think about Stuart's suggestion that we should rejoin the single market?
Not happening. I mean, I wasn't a Brexiteer, but it's electorally just not happening.
I mean, I think we're in violent agreement on many fronts here. I think Keir Starmer has kept the head, should keep the head, and any calls for him to do some kind of emotional spasm should be strongly resisted. All of that being said, the Prime Minister was right today when he said everything has changed. So here we are, 9 years on from the Brexit referendum in 2016, and we have to ask ourselves, and I accept that for some this might seem unpalatable or unrealistic at this stage, is it really in our national interest? Is it really in our economic interest to remain outside of that huge market right on our doorstep? And if the UK was to re-enter that, undoubtedly it would be a leading market within it.
Do you think we would be better aligning ourselves more with the EU if you're talking about America against the rest of the world?
I mean, I think Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves and the Labour government want to have a reset in relation to relations with the EU and to have closer ties. But to actually reopen the Brexit issue, what that does is that while in the longer term that might bring some more financial stability, it creates a huge amount of political instability. And political instability right now is going to actually offset any benefit that you could potentially have in the long run in relation to an improved. And it doesn't have to be that way if you can improve the relation.